Welcome to Joy in Our Town. My name is Joanna Prince. Still a mystery to many is the transition from childhood to adolescence that turns a darling child into this thing called a teenager. The challenges of parenthood change with the stages of child development. Today, we are going to discuss the topic of the rebellious attitude that some teens adopt and how to respond to it. My guest is Dr. Ken Brown from Hope Counseling. Thank you so much, Mr. Brown, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So, are teenage attitude issues normal, or is something as a society has tolerated?
Well, that's a good question. Actually, I like Bill Cosby. He says that all teenagers are brain damaged, and he makes quite a joke of it. But the truth is that teenagers have problems, and we look at them as problems because that's the way we're taught. But the truth is that teenagers have some developmental issues. They are developing, they're at a critical stage of their development right at this time of their life. They need to first individuate from their parents. They need to become different than their parents. That's one of their jobs. The second thing they're doing is they have to develop and find their identity. Who am I? They're doing all these existential questions. Who am I? Where did I come from? Where am I going? What am I to do? And then they have to become self-actualized, which basically fancy term just to figure out what their mission in life is. You know, what are their strengths, and how are they going to apply them? So to do that, they have to. One of their missions is that they have to break away from the family and become their own person. Now the problem is that sometimes it's an easy transition, and sometimes, especially for some kids, it's very difficult.
Right.
And unfortunately, some parents think it's terrible what's happening because, oh, these kids are suddenly becoming different than I am. I thought they were going to be like me. But remember, I got good news for you. Your children are supposed to be different than you. They're supposed to become their own people. Now, so there is a little bit of this childhood or teenage rebellion that is normal. It's been talked about since the beginning of time. The generation gap is not a new thing. It's been there. Rudyard Kipling talked about it. But on the other hand, unfortunately, in our modern world, there's some things that are happening that have made this particularly difficult for teenagers and for parents.
Wow. Okay. So, kids with strong personalities or strong wills, are they the ones that tend to be more defiant?
Yes, James Dobson has a fine book, a wonderful book, The Strong-Willed Child, and there's a lot of material on this where they're children that are very strong in their. There are some kids that are easy; they're compliant kids. Matter of fact, you can see that by the time they're 2. and there's a lot of other kids that become very strong-willed. They're kind of like the Margaret Thatchers, who was the Prime Minister of England. They're very strong people who just, you know, like they have an iron will. And there are some kids that are yes kids and some kids that are no kids.
Yes.
So and you'll find that now. Just because they're no kids, or they're people that like to have the hard knocks of life, they're experimental. They find out, they learn by testing the boundaries. But I like what someone said once about pay me now or pay me later. It's like, do you change your oil or change your engine? I mean, sometimes the kids that test you earlier, they learn more about independence and they learn more about boundaries and structure if the parenting is good. Sometimes other kids that have never ever challenged authority, later on they end up, you know, falling apart because they never learned to become themselves. So yes, the personality does play a big role in the rebellion.
Okay. Well, there's a term, spoiled brat syndrome. Would you say that is a result of poor parenting in the early years of the child's development?
Well, that's a debate. You know, there's a lot of people saying, oh, everything about the child can be decided within 4 years. Well, we have an adoption agency. That is not true, because there's a lot of times kids are adopted later in life and they turn out perfect, wonderful. And so they didn't have necessarily the best upbringing. Sometimes they had a terrible upbringing. But good parenting, even late, you know, sometimes, you know, it's like the cavalry comes over the horizon and saves everybody at the nick of time, you know. Well, the thing is this, is that you know, the spoiled brat syndrome is there. And I think what happened was that the Depression created a certain type of parenting, and parents came back from the Second World War, and then there, of course, this whole baby boomers, and of course the baby boomer bulge, you know, those people, the parents that wanted to give everything to their child. And then, of course, then the Generation Xers, and the baby boomers had their kids, and those kids were entitled because the baby boomers entitled them. So now kids are being babysat by television and by computers. Kids don't go out and play as much as they used to. Kids, in fact, if they are busy, they're being dropped around to 2 or 3 activities by parents. So parents, in fact, sometimes don't have a marriage because they're carting their kids around. They're actually called tiger kids. I mean, there's a whole book just written on this. And so entitlement, that's the problem.
Right.
I mean, can you love a child too much? No, but you can give them too many privileges with not enough responsibilities.
Right.
You can make them have a false sense of entitlement. It's like people nowadays that have multiple charges of driving under suspension. Because, see, I have a right to drive. It's my right. I own the car. That's not true. The driver's license is a privilege.
Right.
Well, in exactly the same way, children have got to know and learn and be shaped that they have privileges based on responsibility. They're not rights. Yeah, they have a right to breathe. Yeah, I say to my kids, what rights do you have? You have a right to breathe. Well, they have a right to be listened to. Right. They have a right not to be abused. I mean, the kids have rights, of course. But a lot of times, the rights that they think they have aren't the rights that they really do have. I mean, they have a right to go out and be with my friends and stay out all night. No, you don't have a right to. That's a privilege if I let you go out, you know. So, but the spoiled brat syndrome, unfortunately, is part of our modern society because of the way that our culture is creating expectations. Like, for instance, the Sweet 16 party. There's a lot. In some cultures, Sweet 16 party, by 16 you're out working. You're not having a party with the parents spending $2,000, $3,000 to have a party. You know, it's the same thing with prom dresses. You know, I mean, some parents can afford it, perhaps, but not every kid should expect that their parents are going to give them a limousine and buy an outfit, a $1,000 dress for prom night.
Right.
So entitlement and expectations are always our downfall.
Right. Now, the society that we live in, culture, fun, arts, magazines, music, that plays a big role on our teenagers, our tweenies. What would you say the role that it played?
Well, I think you said it's a huge, it's an unestimable how powerful. I mean, when you think about how many hours of television, they said in the first 20 years of a child's life, they've watched 40 years of television. Of course, that's a joke. But the point is that they've lived 100 lifetimes, literally, through television. And they've lived vicariously. Vicariously means it's not their life. They're living through someone else's life. That's their heroes that are on television. One of the classic programs nowadays, being an adoption agency, is this 16 and Pregnant show. It's really had, unfortunately, a powerful effect on the kids. Abortion has gone up because of it. People don't want, they know that they were trying to dramatize teenage pregnancy, and actually it's unfortunately worked against the sanctity of life. So that's just one program, and there's so many programs, and it's not just the television. It's also in the tweets. It's that the kids are now so connected. Used to be that you could take away their phone, but now what do? You take away their phone, their texting, their tweets, their iPads, their computer. I mean, they're connected in more ways than we ever were. Right. That means that the peer pressure is as enhanced. It's probably 3 times stronger nowadays than it once was. And so who's raising your kids? The school system seems to be raising your kids. The television is raising your kids. You're so busy trying to earn income now, it takes 2 parents almost to be able to provide for a family. So unfortunately, by default, the secular society and the news media and peer pressure become an ever-increasing role in the children's life, which makes them vulnerable then to this modern liberal society, an anti-biblical, an anti-Christian society worldview where get yours, get it now. I mean, delayed gratification. What's that? Why should I wait? And that's why teen pregnancy has gone up, and why that people are having sex earlier and earlier because of the way that our media is bombarding our kids constantly with hidden messages that are destructive to them.
Right. Rules without relationship create rebellion. That's James Dobson. quickly. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes. I mean, obviously, if you unpack it, if a person, if you give rules to a child, but you don't have a good relationship, they're just going to rebel. We say in parenting, love is the coin of the realm. What is the, we use dollars here, and you use yen in Japan and euros in Europe. But in relationships, it's love. If you want to have a relationship with your child, you need to show them love, caring, respect. You need to have communication. You need to have intimacy. It's the coin of the realm. So if you give them rules, well, it'll work. Children will be fearful of you, and when they're young, maybe when they're 8, when they're 10, maybe 12. But at some point, because as sure as the sun is coming up in the morning, that child's growing up. And that child is going to eventually figure out, hey, wait a minute. My parents are all powerful. My dad can't beat up every single person. My mom isn't the most beautiful woman that has ever walked the planet. At some point they're going to wake up and they're going to say, wait a minute, I have some power here. Now, unless there's a relationship, you don't have any money in the bank. You don't have any coins to spend. So a lot of times when you say to the child, look, I'm not just going to give you rules just for their own sake. I'm giving you these rules because I love you, son, or I love you, daughter. You know I love you. You know I'm passionate about you. I'm quite fond of you, and I'm trying, and you're my first and most important priority. And that's why I'm saying no to you.
Right.
When they sense that relationship, they sense that love. Matter of fact, you could put the knife in and turn the blade, and they'll say thank you. You can get away with a lot. Now, they might grumble. But remember, as a parent, don't get scared just because a kid says no, or they get angry, or they kind of don't. They seem to resent you because everybody's doing it. Dad, why can't you let me do it too?
Right.
Well, the fact is they know you love them. Then they'll take it. They might grumble, but they will.
Okay. And lastly, what are some of the common mistakes that parents make, and what can they do to improve those mistakes?
Oh, that's a huge topic. I mean, obviously, one of the main things that parents do is they don't really listen to the kids. They lecture. They don't talk to them, they lecture. Then other times, another problem is that they think that just because they got good marks in school, there's no problems with them. Just because they haven't been a problem. Some of the biggest problems have been those kids that have been the good kids, the perfect kids. Sometimes what happens with parents is that they think that one discipline, one correction is going to solve all the problems, but it's not. We say there's a three rule that you always got to remember, that generally you have to correct a child at least 3 times before they finally get it. And parents don't if they lose it, if they show their anger, the kids have won. You got to be kind of like the police officer. When the police officer stops someone for speeding, he doesn't say, "You were speeding, you terrible person." He says, "No, driver's license, ownership, and insurance." I was a police officer in Toronto, Canada. I didn't ever go up to the car and start yelling at them. I just was very calm. And of course, that person goes, "Oh no, he's so calm, he's going to give me a ticket." So when you're calm and you say, I'm going to teach the most 2 important words parents need to know are regardless and nevertheless. You just say, you listen to your kids, and you listen to them rant and rave and carry on. That's okay. And you say, okay, I'm hearing you. I've heard you. I heard you say this. Did I hear you say this? Yes. But nevertheless, regardless of what you're saying, this is still what's going to happen. And if you're calm, it's going to really be great, have a great impact on those kids.
Oh, wow. So awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Brown, for being here. And I really, really thank God for what you're doing in the community. Thank you so much.
God bless you.
Well, it's Joy in Our Town. Again, my name is Joanna Prince, and remember, there's always joy in the solution. Take care.
For more information on today's topic, you can contact our guests at the web address or phone number on the screen. For comments or questions, you can call us at the station at 772-489-2701 or log on to WTCE.tv.
The views and opinions expressed herein are not necessarily those of this local station.